All right, this is from Course 1. It's part of Chapter 1, and lesson is 1 Part C. What we're going to be talking about today is an extension of what we've been having conversations about in class. Estimating and finding the product of decimals and a whole number. So taking a decimal and multiplying it by a whole number and coming up with a product, and then being able to look at that and say, you know, by using estimation, if that is a reasonable answer, and if you feel confident that, you know what, I did the right job. Let's take a peek at some practice problems and talking about estimation. Say I had 429 and I multiplied that by 11, and it ended up with a product 793, whatever the situation might be, 429 something times 11. And I said, that is 793. How estimation comes into play to make sure that you are getting that is I can take and round these numbers. Okay, 2 means to rest, so that's 400 times, remember, 4 less, let the 1 rest, 10. I can look at that and say, well, I know, let's see, 400 times 10, 10 times bigger, so 4,000. So if I'm estimating that the product's going to be about 4,000, and then I do my multiplication and I come up with something like 793, I know that either I had an error in my multiplication or maybe I should double check my estimation, but something is off. So it's not, if it's not together, you need to stop yourself and say, okay, what did I do wrong? You just don't want to keep moving on. So using estimation is a powerful tool in multiplication, in addition, and division and subtraction. You know, we use it all the time. So let's go back to our student edition. Sometimes it's nice if you guys bring these home too as we go along with them, but it's certainly not necessary for you to do that. So where do we use that in the real world? Let's look at some of these examples that they have for us in our book. Bamboo can grow about 4 and 92 feet in height per day. The table shows different ways to find the total height a bamboo plant can grow in 2 days. Okay, so the first thing that they had us do was use the addition problem and estimate to find 2 times 4 and 92 hundredths. Okay, so we used addition because we knew that we had 2 days. So we added up 2 days with 4 and 92 hundredths. And we ended up with 9 and 84 hundredths feet. Okay. The other thing that they had us do was use estimation. And so we took 2 days and we times it, or we took 492 hundredths. We underline, we want to, or excuse me, we want to round to the whole place, or the ones. And so we look at the 9, 5 or more, let it soar. So we ended up with 5. I'm so sorry, I think my smartboard needs to be orientated because I'm not matching up the best. But then I would take and do mentally 2 times 5, and should be about 10. So then when I take that 10, maybe look at that addition there too, 4 and 84 hundredths. I know I'm about right. So those 2 ways of looking. And then multiplying 4 and 92 hundredths. Doing it standard way of multiplication times 2. So I have 2 times 2 hundredths is 4 hundredths. 2 times 9 tenths. I have 18 tenths, so the 8 stays and 1 becomes 1 whole. And 2 times 4 is 8, and 8 plus that other whole is 9. So I have 9 and 84 hundredths. Okay. Using all of those ways, you know, the addition is a nice way if you're kind of really not sure if you're doing it right, but using that estimation with your multiplication really kind of just really helps you hit home that, yeah, I did the right thing. 9 and 84 hundredths. All right. When we are talking about multiplication of decimals, go down here, when we talk about even using repeated addition, that can help us understand why the place value or the decimal stays the way that it does. In 4th grade, we don't really spend much time. It's not a standard that we work on with decimals. I'm highlighting and talking about something else. I'm so sorry. So here we go. Using repeated addition can help you place the decimal point in the product of a whole number and a decimal. Okay, the whole number represents the number of times the decimal is used in an add-in. So place the decimal point in the product the same number of places from the right as the decimal factor. This is key information when you're especially using the standard algorithm of multiplication. I noticed that there's a couple of you that are using lattice. Really would like you to get away from lattice, especially with course 1, because lattice has no focus on place value. So I would really like you to use standard or even partial products. We have multiplication, just so you're really kind of understanding what's happening with place value. But what they're saying there is when you have 4 and 92 hundredths, when you use repeated addition, because we know that repeated addition is multiplication. Okay, so like we always tell kids, if you can't figure out multiplication, you can always fall back on repeated addition to help you. But you are doubling the hundredths, you're doubling your tenths, and you're doubling your ones place. So that place value, your decimal, needs to be in your product the same amount of places that your decimal is in, in your factors. Okay, so when you have two decimal spots, when you have two decimal spots in your factor, you need to have two decimal place values in your product. So let's take another peek at that. I'm going to end up clearing this. And let's scroll down a little bit, if it'll let me here. All right, let's take a look at some more examples. I'm just going to take a peek at my time here. All right, so examples of multiplying decimals. So we're going to look for the product of taking 4 times 83 hundredths. In your head, always, and I'm going to have you do it on your assignment tomorrow and as we're working together, always estimate first, especially when you're doing these decimals because they can be tricky. Make sure that you're getting about where you think it should be. 4, of course, you don't need to round to estimate, but 83 hundredths, let's round to the nearest whole number to make that mental estimation the least bit of a struggle. So underlining the 0 in the ones place and circling the 8 because it's going to tell either the 0 to rest or to go up. And you're going to go up to 1. 4 times 1, you're going to end up with 4. Okay. What they're showing you over here is, what actually is happening with multiplication. Like we know when we're multiplying something, we're making equal size groups. So we have 4 groups of 83 hundredths, and that's what they've put here for you. 4 different groups of 83 hundredths. So, someone who is kind of struggling could definitely do. Now, this is absolutely not what you want to do, especially when you're multiplying like 15 times 83 hundredths. My goodness, can you imagine? But you could, add those up and see you still have those 2 place values in the decimal. Or you can take 83 hundredths and multiply it by 4. 4 times 3 hundredths, we have 12 hundredths, so 2 hundredths, and with that we can make a tenth. 4 times 8 tenths is 32 tenths, plus another tenth is 33 tenths. So we have 3 tenths, and then we have 3 wholes. 4 times 0 is 0 plus 3. And you know what, I'm doing something that probably, I'm so familiar with multiplying by decimals that I don't even realize I'm doing it. Generally, when we're first learning to multiply by decimals, we just put the product in, and then we look back at our factors, and we look to see how many how many decimal places are in our factors. And then what we do is we, starting here, then we make how many leaps to put that decimal place in. This is what I'm saying. If we have 2 spots here, I'm going to start here, and I'm going to put the decimal right there. Okay, so it would be 3 and 32 hundredths. Okay, but like I said before, it's just so natural for me to insert those where they need to go. All right, moving on. Finding 3 times 14 and 2 tenths. Estimating first to make sure that we're about right. And I'm sorry we didn't even look at that. We came up with 3 and 32 hundredths here. Remember in our estimate, we said that we estimated it was about 4. So is that reasonable? Yeah, it's reasonable. So let's go back to this one. I'm sorry. So 3 times 14 and 2/10. Going to underline 4, circle the 2. We're going to round it to the nearest whole number. It's going to stay at 14, so we have 3 times 14. 42 is what our estimate is going to be. Now remember, sometimes you can get your estimate wrong, so if they're way off, maybe you did your multiplication right, but it very well could be that your estimation needs to be looked at a little bit more. All right, so once again we have 3 groups of 14 and 2/10, so we could very well, and I know that some of you on your exit slip today, this is something that you're still comfortable with, so I want you to walk away from it, slowly here, but repeated addition, just bringing that down. So we have 42 and 6/10. Okay. But now we're going to do the multiplication mode. Let me erase this here. And we have 14 and 2/10 times 3. Okay. So starting with 3 times 2/10, we have 6/10. 3 times 4, we have 12. We're going to put the 2 down and bring that 1 up because we've made the 1 up into the tens place because we've made another 10. 3 times 1/10 is 3, plus 1 more 10 is 4. Okay, so now we have 426, and now I need to figure out where to put that decimal place. And I see that I have 1 decimal place here, so I'm going to leave 1 here, and I have 42 and 6/10. Tomorrow, when you come to school, we are going to focus on working on multiplying a decimal times a whole number and estimating to make sure that our product is a reasonable answer. Thank you for watching the video. Have a good night.